Test 1, 2, 3. Test 3, 2, 1. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 3, 2, 1.
prayer and pledge. And Leanne.
Good afternoon. Will you please join me in prayer? Holy Spirit, just alive and present.
That's a sign.
We'll sing that instead of.
To the prayer. Everybody got their phones?
Longhorn Band's in the elevator, they'll be here in a minute.
Please pray with me. Loving and gracious God, we come before you this afternoon, so grateful for so many things. Thank you, first of all, for getting us all through last week, for equipping us, and for everyone rising to the occasion to take care of our patients in the way they needed to be taken care of. God, you are a God of creation, and you're continually creating. So we thank you that you are co-creators with us. We ask that you continue to lead us, guide us, inform us, and equip us as together we create the future that JPS needs for us to be. Thank you for all of our leaders, for everyone in this room, for all of our team members, our patients, and especially all the communities we serve. We do so with humility and such a sense of privilege. All this we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is swearing in of officers, which is brand new to me.
Roger.
But I think this is a reasonable and good way to show that there's a changing of the guard at the hospital district. So, who do we want?
Amanda.
You know, something like this, you only get an opportunity once, probably in your life, so that you can go, so let it be written, so let it be done. Or, like Star Trek, you can say, make it so. So, all right, I, if you state your name,
I, Amanda,
okay? You solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the officer position
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the officer position
to which I've been appointed or elected
for which I am appointed or elected
by the Board of Managers of the Tarrant County Hospital District,
by the Board of Managers of the Tarrant County Hospital District,
a political subdivision of the state of Texas,
a political subdivision of the state of Texas,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
carry out such duties
carry out such duties
in a manner consistent with the Tarrant County Hospital District bylaws
in a manner consistent with the Tarrant County Hospital District
and the laws of this state and the United States,
and the laws of this state and the United States.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time we gotta do that in short spurts. That's what it's like wedding vows, you gotta remember all that stuff.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I need to know if we could retro, because Charlie and I didn't get that.
We got, oh my God, y'all.
Now, I can say that we've signed this statement of elected appointed officer, and it's about, we have not indirectly been offered paid, but there were threats that if we didn't take the job, don't say anything about that.
Speaking of pay, the new chair may have a suggestion to increase our
Dorothy,
pay.
there is one advantage to being down here, and that is I will be able to understand DT.
All right, thank you. And
Luck with that.
thank you. Thank you.
We will go ahead with our agenda, and next is the approval of the minutes from...
No citizens.
Oh, sorry, there are no citizens, okay. All right, skip that, okay. So next on the agenda is approval of the Joint Finance and Planning Board meeting from December the 16th. Are there any corrections to that?
Approval?
All right, it's been moved.
Second.
Moved by Charlie, second by Zim, okay. All those, is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed by nay, okay? All right, so I do my first little report. So I am so very honored to serve as the board chair for the next 2 years. And I want to thank each of you for allowing me this privilege. I know there will be times when there will be some disagreement, that I'm moving too fast, moving too slow, or you're just not happy. But what I will ask you to do is to communicate those concerns and issues to me. If we have honest and clear dialogue, there is no issue or problems that we can't address and make it better. Make it better. Some of them we might even be able to solve, okay? My priorities for the coming year is to move forward with the bond program and hopefully seeing some dirt turned and a few buildings started, okay? 2 would be engaging our people. 3, improving our patients' overall experience. And 4, implementing our strategic plan. So thank y'all again for allowing me this opportunity.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to share that I keep looking at this, that this is a rarity for us. And I think it's something that even going to school districts and sharing that here's a person who started employee, went from employee to board member, and where she started, she's now chair of that board.
Okay.
That's to be commendable.
No question.
Sure is. Can I make a comment too? I just want everyone to realize if we look at this end of the room with our leadership, there are 3 African-American women that are running this organization and a female CFO, which there's no hospital in the country that can as proudly look at that as we can.
Right.
Great point.
Females year.
This chicks rule.
Yeah, well, and I get the opportunity to meet with these women a couple times a week, and there are some strong women running this board.
All right, thank you.
So let it be done.
Thank you. All right, Carolyn?
Yes, so good afternoon, and Madam Chair, I'm so honored to be able to serve underneath you and underneath this board, and your directive and what you would like accomplished are very clear, and I'm hoping that everyone understands that. So it's nice to hear it from you. Unlike you, if I'm moving too fast or not moving in the right way, I don't want you to come to me. I just want you to move aside and allow me to move on. So those are the 2 differences. But I would like to give an update. I have been sending out to the board since we did not have a meeting in January, some updates that are going on. Regarding COVID, our numbers are actually coming down as they are across the nation and across the state, and so that's great news. Those who are being admitted are largely and continue to be those who are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. And getting the booster even helps more. And so we see much less hospitalization for those who are fully vaccinated with their booster. We currently have 50 employees, and just to put some perspective around that, we were up above, close almost to 200 at one point in which we had employees who were testing positive. So we are now down to 50, many more are returning, fewer are testing positive, and this really helps us from a staffing challenge that we were experiencing. So that's all great news as it pertains to COVID. Next week, I think this is really great news that next week we will be kicking off our remote home monitoring program. with our current COVID home monitoring program patients. And this allows us to actually have Bluetooth-enabled devices such as blood pressure cuffs and pulse oxes in the home that record the biometrics of the patient, and actually that information gets transmitted to Epic.
Wow.
So that is, yes, so that is huge. We're really excited, and we are hoping to extend this to our patients who we are beginning to plan around and monitor with congestive heart failure. Just to remind the board, that is one of the AIP or organizational goals. So we should be able to expand that to our congestive heart failure patients and be able to monitor them from home and adjust their medication. So this is extremely exciting in using our technology and allowing care closer to the home. So I'm really excited. Daphne had shared with you and sent out an email about the CMS mandate as it regards vaccine. And I would like to inform the board that we are above 80% with our staff being compliant. We are working through some of the exemptions, but much like other organizations that we have reached out to, many employees in healthcare have become compliant. So I did want to update you on that. Regarding new executive team members, Amanda and I believe Dorothy both were a part of the interview for our VP president of the foundation. I made an offer this week and she accepted, and that is Cheryl Sutterfield-Jones. Some of you may know her. She's been in the Dallas area for some time. Has a lot of connection in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Highly recommended. We were really impressed with her. And look forward to her. I sent her a text today congratulating her and letting her know what she needed to do on day one and starting the capital campaign and paying for the first medical home. So she has yet to respond. I'll let you know when she does. We continue our search for our CIO, our VP of Health Plans that will help us in the management of the JPS connection population. And we are closing in on our SVP of HR. And again, I would like to thank Amanda and Dorothy for their time that they have spent. But I am very impressed with the last two candidates that have come through. Unfortunately, I do have to inform the board that Dina Dent has given her resignation. Yes, she has. She is our CNO. She was extended an offer that she cannot refuse. It takes her a little closer to home, which is Virginia. And so I congratulate her as she continues to pursue her career, but our loss will be their gain. So if you see Dina, please thank her for all that she's done. So that will open up the CNO search. Other updates, I did update the board in writing that we had submitted our corrective action plans to Joint Commission. We've just received notice that all those action plans were accepted, so we're fully accredited for the next 3 years.
All right.
Good.
We completed our market assessment, so we have completed increasing our minimum wage, our equity review. Those both have been paid out, and we now completed our market review, and we'll pay that out. So we can check the box on that. We will continue to communicate with our employees how important they are, and we always get positive feedback on the work that we've done around salary and benefits. So again, I want to thank the board. Quite a few of our employees were impacted as a result of those changes. We'll begin to look at some metrics as to retention during this time. I know we know there's a lot of factors around that, and engagement is how that has been able to drive and sustain that. Last night, Amanda and I were on a Precinct 2 quarterly bond update that Commissioner Allen has, and so that was great. There was great attendance from Precinct 2. Broadus provided the update on the bond, and I gave a little bit more information about the vendor process. And just also want to inform the board that there continues to be a lot of vendor outreach. Earlier this week, there was an event for National Association of Minority Contracts in the DFW chapter, And then moving forward, there is on February 17th, and we'll have these posted on Yes to JPS, the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce will be hosting a vendor event. Asian American Contractors and Professional Association on February 22nd will be hosting an event. And then on February 24th, we'll be hosting an event with the Regional Black Contractors Association. So we continue to reach out to the community so that we can ensure that there is inclusivity within this community. So with that said, our next CEO town hall for our employees here will be on February 22nd and be open to all employees. Our last town hall had over 800 employees sign in on that, so we look forward to using our town halls as a way to communicate to our employees. So with that, Madam Chair, that is my update.
Very good report.
I want to ask a quick question.
Yes.
On the medical device and monitoring from home, are those done, and I remember talking about it, but I can't, are they done cellular or is it Wi-Fi?
It would be,
The only reason I'm asking is some people may not have Wi-Fi.
let me get back to you.
Something to get back, it'd be fine. I was just curious.
Yeah, let me get back to you. That was reported out this morning, so, yeah, good question. And we'll continue to bring that back.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, I did come in and see you and Amanda, and y'all did a great job. You represented us well, so I thought it was a good presentation, so thank y'all. Okay, all right?
I just wanted to, the newsletter, I call it, that we received from you a couple of times. You did that because we didn't have meetings, or will we get that ongoing?
I would like to continue to update you if you, I would like to get some feedback as to whether you found that helpful or useful.
I did, that's when I asked. It was really helpful. Yeah.
Be helpful. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
I thanked her when I came in, because I really enjoyed getting those. I actually read those.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet.
Short.
All right, any other questions? Okay. Next on our agenda is Dr. Miles for the consideration for the approval of the emergency medicine clinical privileges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the emergency medicine clinical privilege form. There is a few minor revisions and one major revision. The form starts on page 14 of your packet. The revisions start on page 15. Page 15, you'll notice moderate sedation is being removed from the clinical privilege form. The Joint Commission does not require a separate privilege for moderate sedation. It is implied in the procedural sedation under the anesthesia section, which is the next one down, so that we are working through these privilege forms, and you will see moderate sedation removed from them. There's a couple of procedures that have been added on page 16 and on page 17. The major revisions in this form is around urgent care. We actually are adding a clinical privilege specific to urgent care. So you could hold a clinical privilege in urgent care only and not hold a clinical privilege in emergency medicine. Why did we do that? It's because we can extend the urgent care privileges to family medicine and to internal medicine trained physicians. So it expands the pool considerably of practitioners who could hold a clinical privilege and serve in an urgent care function. So that's why there's so much yellow on page 18 and 19, because this is an entirely new clinical privilege that we are submitting for your approval. And I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Recommend approval.
All right. It's been recommended by Chuck for approval. Second by Ralph. If there being no further discussions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed by nay. And so were we doing both of them or just one, both of them at the same time? Or?
There's just one
There's
privilege.
just one,
It's
okay.
all in a single
It's
privilege
all
form,
one
ma'am.
single one, okay.
Yes.
I took them as two. All right, thank you. All right, so next we have Daphne and you and Dr. Miles again. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We needed to present the privileges for January to the officers. Those were approved through the Medical Executive Committee. The board did not meet last month, and so the officers did approve that, and so we're seeking ratification of that action. And that was just the medical staff credentialing for the month of January.
All right, I've missed the first and second, y'all. Okay, as long as you got it, okay. But- Sure, okay. All right, there being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by nay. Okay, motion passes. All right, next on our agenda is a report from the acclaimed physician group. Dr. Becker?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good afternoon. I did submit a few slides for your all's review.
Okay.
And if not, I'm not going to worry about it. I believe on page 21 or 22 of your board book, you have a graph that indicates at the top clinical scorecard. As always, I will start out with we are a clinical organization. This demonstrates data that was provided through the end of the calendar year, and it looks at our quality performance. Thank you. You can see if you go to the bottom where we are performing well and where we still have opportunity. There are a set of goals that each of our clinical departments have. I've mentioned to you previously that we're consolidating those. We are not yet hitting those stretch. That's the top red bar. There are a set of areas where we're doing well at the moment, hitting our stretch goals to reduce readmission rate, decrease individuals coming to the emergency department for a variety of chronic conditions that can be best addressed outpatient, and also decreasing the likelihood of an individual who has risk factors ultimately having an amputation. We're on target or doing well with some of our focus areas in patient experience for the clinicians, and we still have opportunities as we're addressing our retention rate. Right now, within a claim, our physician retention rate at 2 years is turnover rate, 16.5%, and our APPs are about 18.8%. So we have opportunities to significantly reduce that. I wanted to give you a few minutes overview of how we're putting some glue together for the physician group in terms of words and focus. So this really conveys to you how we've tried to put in front of all of our physicians, our APPs, and our non-clinical team members in a claim a vision so that they can get some degree of line of sight to where we want to go, and how to take things and, I would say, give much greater focus to the things we want to drive as a multi-specialty group for the betterment of our patients and our community and for who we are in this very large health system. I mentioned yesterday we also had a town hall for all of our team members. We did it twice. We tried to spice it up a little bit. I told everyone that it is not because we were trying to pull a fast one, that we included two things in each of these big four, and we refer to them as our big four. Each of them are designed to work off of each other and support in total what we're trying to drive as a group. So for example, making it easy to do the right things for patients is not just doing the things most effectively that we know are going to actually improve patient outcomes, but it's actually making it easier for physicians and APPs to get that work done. Fewer clicks on the computer, somebody else getting the busy work done so they don't have to do it. Those are the kinds of things that are going to make us a better multi-specialty group. I do want to highlight that we are definitely focused on making the community healthier, and I have a few statistics coming up in another slide that emphasizes that. We will be a fiscally responsible organization. We will continue to address how, not just from business processes, but our financial management, we will improve. And then we are focused on how we create a very different community than what we've had before as a physician group. So you see belonging, equity, and excellence as 3 features of that. We did not come up with these lightly, and they crosswalk to a multitude of the strategic imperatives in our JPS Health Network strategic plan, and there is a logic underlying that. Number 1, the most important logic is I can't remember all the numbers. Number 2, I wanted to give everybody, whether you're clinical or non-clinical in our organization, the ability to consistently recite our Big Four and to be able to know that fundamentally when we drive anything across our Big Four, we're actually driving part of the strategic plan for the network at the same time. I do want to emphasize we are focused on improving the health of the community. The table on the left is data from the county health rankings that's published every year from the University of Wisconsin Department of Population Health Sciences. It covers every county in the United States. Tarrant County was situated, I think, at 35th in the state of Texas this past year. And on the right, you see 4 bullet points that emphasize fundamentally some of the things that we do across the practice and within the health system as a whole that are driving improvements in the metrics that are tracked nationally for counties. First of all, we have a very large primary care base. That is something where we still have a little catching up to do in the county. Secondly, you will see poor mental health days down at the bottom of the table. We actually have a very large behavioral health presence, as you know. Zelia has been here many times, and Dr. Podeweltz's team is exceptional. And I do want to cite the depression remission effort that Joy Parker, Zelia Baugh, and the team undertook last year to reduce the number of to identify and reduce the number of individuals that had their depression as identified go without treatment. Incredibly important. We have done some exceptional work with preventive care in spots, and we're actually focused on that, and I'll mention it briefly on my last slide. And then there is I think a large effort and some focus from Dr. Sangha and our Women's Health and Children's Group to get a much better handle on how we address not just maternal health equity, but we reduce infant mortality. We also reduce maternal mortality. When you look at maternal deaths up to 365 days post-delivery here in the county, we still have some opportunity to pursue. So we are working, even though we may not make all these numbers move, we're working in light and in line with what's being measured at a national level for counties. I will not read everything on this report. I'm going to comment about 3 or 4 items. Number 1, I mentioned a moment ago about preventive screening. We have a work group that is working with not just our oncologists, but our primary care physicians and some of our specialty physicians to standardize how we address our preventive cancer screenings for prostate cancer, colon cancer, continue to improve our mammography rates, and to move patients with at-risk situations into the next diagnostic process. Second, if you go down to people, we are starting the process of reviewing all of our budgeted positions to see what actually makes sense to continue with and how to prioritize them. Acclaim has consistently had a number of budgeted positions that have remained open throughout the year. You have every right, as do others, to question why, and we're going through to try and make certain that either there's a rationale for it or it should come off the list. Third, I do want to note in strategic, I presented to you about 4 months ago a pro forma on what the impact would be if we were kind of juggling OR open, OR closed, and what that might indicate. Our revenue generation and our activity in our surgical areas has been relatively consistent with that. We've seen a reduction in clinical revenue and in activity. We expect an uptick in that. And so while we're 10% below budget in our volume and we're running below what we would like to see with regards to surgical and in particular orthopedic operative revenue. We anticipate that will come up over the next 2 to 3 months. I do want to note, under organizational, we've initiated quarterly operational reviews with all the clinical departments. They review a packet on a quarterly basis. A large part of that is pretty standard business process to many of you who live outside the healthcare world. A lot of it is just simply reviewing standard metrics, identifying variances, and really asking them to develop their action plans to continue to improve performance. And then lastly, I've mentioned this before, I want to again reach out and thank Sharon, the managed care group, Rory McCready and Kelly Ford in particular. They've been really, really good partners. We continue to work through and adjust some of our contracts. There are rate opportunities that have not been undertaken for a claim that, reasonably speaking, on the present level of volume would be a significant revenue increase. That does not include new contracts or new volume. And so we're working through how to accomplish that, which I think certainly is helpful both for the practice and for the overall financial health of the system. So, Madam Chairperson, that's my report.
All right. Anyone have any questions of Dr. Becker? Thank you.
I just have one comment.
Wait a minute. Chuck was first.
Oh, okay.
No, Chuck, go
I can't
ahead.
see him way down there.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I wanted to comment on a couple of things. I think Brian has done a hell of a lot of good work in a very short period of time in trying to understand and organize and work with the acclaimed medical group. It is not easy by any means, and it has not been easy by any means, especially with the COVID business. Having operating rooms shut down, that type of thing, doesn't make for happy surgeons or happy orthopedic surgeons, but the fact that we're now coming out of this and can expand, I think is great. I think another thing that I think that Brian has looked at very closely and will continue to look at is the contracts that Acclaim is able to sign to provide patient care. We've not been very strong in that area before, but I sense now that we're going to be very strong in that regard, and that's Brian's work, and he deserves a lot of credit. There's one thing I did want to ask the board, and I told Brian that I would potentially even interrupt his presentation because of the word equity. Equity has gotten all sorts of bad press, good press, how you understand it, what it means. And I wanted to just tell the board, when I see equity, I look at that as fairness. So, we're getting ready to recruit for a human resources head that will be the head of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would add one thing to that, and because to me, equity is fairness, I would say it's diversity, equity, opportunity, and inclusion. And that's just my humble thoughts on what we ought to be doing. And Brian's done a great job, and I say thank you.
All right. Roger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've only had really 2 sit-down meetings with Dr. Becker since becoming the Acclaim Executive Committee chairperson. And under your leadership, Dorothy, and of course with Brian and his addition, just for the board to know, I think that we are going to relatively quickly see an evolution of what Acclaim will be and can be from what it has been. And to me, it's very exciting. And I just ask the board as we go along in the next year or two, there may be some different asks that come of us, but it's all part of that evolution to make continue to be an outstanding group of providers. So it's a really exciting time for us now. Thank you.
So I'm going to give my shout out to Brian because I meet with him quite often. But, you know, often you get a great leader in that not only takes ownership of what they're asked to come in and do, but downstream they really begin to impact how it is we do business throughout the hospital. And I think that's a real testament to a strong leader. And so really where he's changed it in our finance and our operations and in our leadership has just been amazing in such a short period of time. So thank you, Brian.
Okay. And I say thank you. And I had privilege to sit through the orientation that he presented to Roger and Dr. Duncan. And I think that if the board saw that, it really shows the full range of what's the opportunities and how the full range of what can be and how it will be in the future. So I think part of that is, if Roger, if we could figure out how we could get that presentation to the full board, I think it's eye-opening, and it really gives you an understanding of that connection between what we are doing, they are doing, and the system is doing. And if we don't all work together, then we will never reach our full potentials. So I'm very glad you're here, and thank you. Okay. All right, now, DT is not here today. He had to go out of town. And so Trent is going to give the Joint Finance and Planning Committee update. Hey, Trent.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
I don't know what's more unnerving, being not able to walk or seeing my big, huge face in front of that.
It's very ominous over Karen's shoulder.
Exactly how Johnson feels now. Appreciate it, Madam Chairman, and thank you for the introduction. We had our joint Finance Planning Committee. As you all know, we've combined those two committees for the foreseeable future just because of the relationship between the bond program and the financial decisions that have to support that. We had that meeting back on January the 27th. Sharon presented the financials. Everything looked great. I want to give you a little bit more detail relative to the follow-up from that meeting. And Dorothy, feel free to jump in and add to this as you need to. But most of you are probably aware that Dorothy and Karen, Daphne and company were at Commissioner's Court this past week. Steve was also there and was able to give on a briefing item an overview to the Commissioner's Court as to what we saw as the process by which we would engage Commissioner Court response and Commissioner Court input into the bond program, which was a very positive meeting. I thought it was well received. It was certainly a different tenor than we've seen in some of the previous meetings. I watched it online. I know talked to Gary Bickett several times since that. I think the result of that meeting, and this is to Dorothy's credit, to try to make sure that we've put together the right process to involve them and make sure that we haven't over-involved them or under-involved them is a real challenge, because we've not been given a lot of definition to which specific projects we should be taking to them for approval. So to Dorothy's credit, we were able to get two commissioners, in this case Judge Whitley and Commissioner Brooks, actually joined our steering committee meeting this past week. That was probably the most effective meeting that we have had, because we were able to get directly from Judge Whitley and Commissioner Brooks. He joined us a little late. Robert was there. He joined us a few minutes later. There were a lot of questions that came up from the Commissioner's Court discussion about what I said earlier. What is the detail relative to what the board and the commissioners need to be interacting on project approval. The Commissioners Court had sort of concluded that a series of joint meetings between board and the commissioners would be necessary on items moving forward that required commissioner approval. When we got them to the steering committee, I pointed out that just looking at our RFP, RFQ list alone, there's probably over 20 joint meetings that are going to happen in the next 4 to 5 months. And the fact that we probably needed to hone in on that a little bit deeper and understand more specifically which of those RFP, RFQs really required that joint meeting versus those that did not. And Judge Whitley was quick to point out that while he was speaking for himself, and I think Commissioner Brooks agreed, we did get some parameters set in that discussion by which we can move recommendations from the board forward to Commissioners Court in the venue of having to have a joint meeting and not. And so that general difference is going to be, we are building new buildings, then the Commissioners Court wants to be involved in that. That will involve also things like the central plant. But when we're talking about a parking garage expansion, or we're talking about, some of the basic nuts and bolts things we have to do district-wide to affect this project, those are not going to probably go to Commissioners Court. So that's going to save us a great deal of time, and it opened the door for us to move into the discussion on the PEC. Because as you all know, we've already recommended action on the PEC, and we're ready to go forward with back on the PEC. That discussion was helpful because Judge Whitley and Commissioner Brooks, I think, agreed moving forward with that made sense. We had Derek add to the slide deck the overall master facility plan so that we were able to walk them through what the PEC looked like in its interim status as opposed to where it will be in permanent status. And I think that was very helpful, the commissioners to understand the thinking behind what we were going to do with the PEC and the relationship of the PEC to our overall RFP, RFQ process. So I think it was a great meeting. I believe that we have a very good path moving forward. We continue to have great support from our staff in that steering committee, working very closely with Derek and his team and all the different sub-consultants. But I think for the first time, we really probably have a trajectory that's positive, that we can measure, that looks good going forward. So, Madam Chairman, I will yield any additional time to you to elaborate on that, but that's our report for tonight.
Okay. Well, I think you covered the things that, how we wanted to communicate. That kind of stopped a couple of our Zoom meetings with, where I was asking for all the county commissioners to meet with us. I think what we've set in place will eliminate some of those meetings, but I'm still open to make sure that every county commissioner get the information that they need. And I think when it is something that is in their district, they will be the one that that's involved in our steering committee. That was one of the deals that we got out of that. I think that where we are with which one of our projects that we probably need to have a joint meeting with, and they're going to do the medical home. I think that's going to move pretty quick. I think they're going to put that on their agenda for March, and if we have narrowed it down to a few, and so we're going to do a joint presentation together with that. So I think that will help us be able to move that forward, okay? Any questions about any of the
joint presentation, will that be the quorum of the Commissioners Court and board?
I think they were thinking about having a joint board and Commissioners Court.
I like that because that would hopefully, we don't run into what we ran into when we were selecting the consultant for the bond program.
That is what we are trying to eliminate. But when they saw that list of all the things that was going to be required, it was a kind of like, oh. And so I think we're looking at the form that shows the future things, so they would be able to time it so that it would not slow us down. What I'm trying to prevent is slowing down the things that we need to move on. We cannot wait 2 months for us to move forward on a project. The crisis for site, we need to move on that. And the other one, we cannot wait 2 months for us to 3 months for us to do this joint presentation, because that's going to eliminate what we do with this medical home.
Yeah.
Okay?
I frankly think that they got some insight in how methodical we have been and reasoned we have been, and it probably gave them some assurance that I don't mean to overstate this, we know what we're doing, and I think it reassured them.
Yeah.
I do think they want the big ticket items, wherever they can ribbon cut.
Right.
They're politicians,
yeah.
so wherever they can ribbon cut, they want to be part of that.
Yeah.
And so
But I
we
think
can do
that part of that was saying, we want you to be a part of all of the work, so that when it gets there, you will have a better understanding. If it's not you, who's looking at your bids and stuff, so that when it come forward, everybody is comfortable, and whatever their concerns were, staff was able to address those, and it looked like it's going to move better.
Well, and also to Steve's point, and for the general public and for, anybody here, every piece of this bond program puzzle touches the other piece. And it's a true testament to our staff, to Broadus and their team, to Trent and your leadership, of really how methodical this process is. Yes, there are not shovels in the ground and cranes and dirt flying, but it is an amazing amount of work and time spent in these meetings, and making sure that step one is before step three on each and everything. So my hat's off to Trent. I couldn't do it, buddy. It's a lot. I mean, it is a lot.
Yeah, but I do want to tell any of the committee, if there is something that you want additional information, because we want you to be just as knowledgeable as that committee, and share that information and get your input. And so I want to make sure we're not leaving anybody out that want to be at that table. Okay? All right. Thanks, Trent.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate the comments and look forward to keeping the ball moving forward.
All right. Appreciate that, since I'm not going to let you get out of it. Okay? All right. I think the next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone need to remove from consent agenda? Did you have a question?
I have a question, but it's not on a particular item, so I can ask afterwards.
Oh, okay. All right, let me just carry this on through. All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent? Steve Montgomery beat you. Will you second?
Well, I need to abstain from item J.
Okay, all right. Did you get that? Okay, all right. So I have a motion. Now, do I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. All right. Steve Montgomery did the motion. Reverend Emerson did,
No, go
did
ahead.
second. And so if there are no further discussion on approving the consent agenda, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by nay. Now, what is your question?
I hate to keep bringing up the same thing.
Okay.
When I was looking at the agenda items on the diversity form, I was under the impression, maybe I just didn't understand it then, when they checked the block, okay, I was told several times that on the very bottom bar, the goods and services obtained under this contract are part of an excluded category. I was under the impression that was a state policy. It doesn't say that on here. It says the policies and procedures of JPS. The reason I ask that is because I think that those groups, those vendors, still should at least submit the diversity form. And if it's a policy of JPS, then I'd like for us to maybe discuss that in the future.
Okay.
So, just if it's helpful, Reverend Emerson, we recognized your question, so actually Lauren and I have been working with the diversity and inclusion team on the language in the form. There's two things going on. One is in terms of looking at certain categories and services for which there is no diversity spend available. And then the other piece is that we give the form and expect them to respond to our good faith form in every instance. And so we are going to clean up this language so that it's clear what we mean by excluded categories on the form, and we will be back with that. We're actually working on that now.
So you know what I was thinking?
I do.
Yes. I'm making my little note. We're going to put that back on the agenda. Wait a minute. I'll send that over to, Trent, is that planning? All right. But I do hear you. And so, okay. Do you have any report?
I do not have a report this month.
So at this time, we will close the open session and reconvene for closed session. Okay. It is now 1 after 2:01. Okay. session at 3:25, and we have one item that we need to take care of, and that's the privilege. Okay, I'm sorry. We will reconvene at 3:25 in open session, and we have one item, and that would be the privileges, and Dr. Miles, would you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Medical Executive Committee, after a thorough review, is requesting the Board of Managers approve the credentialing activity presented to you today, with the exception of applicant number 9.
Recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, second by Chuck, okay. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Those not approving by nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. There being no further business, we are adjourned.